You're listening to the SBP Podcast Mobile Filmmaking, episode 138, and I'm your host, Susie Botello. Wow, it's unbelievable that we're already in December. We're about to hit 2023. Sideways, horizontal, vertical, upside down, right side up, every which way you can. I want to wish you a very happy holiday to all our friends, our listeners, our guests, everyone who's here listening. I just want to wish you the very best of the holiday season. And also, may as well wish you a happy new year. I hope you've got a lot of creativity planned and you're already rolling with it. And speaking of rolling with it, let's go and talk to Alex. Alex made a short film. It's about 20 minutes or so long. It's a crazy little story that I think you're going to be really entertained by. You're going to be entertained by his stories. You're going to be inspired by his stories. But also we're including a link to his film down below in the notes. So watch the movie, listen to Alex, listen to how he made the film, and he's got some really good, inspiring advice for you and some tips that you'll want to hear. And one more thing, he also shares his contact information so that you can get in touch with him. He wants to hear from you. So if you guys are ready, let's get rolling. Let's talk to Alex. Hey, Alex, how are you tonight?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic because you are my guest, and we're going to share some really inspiring stories about this film that you made, The Countdown, with all our listeners who are basically all over the USA and around the world. How do you feel about that?
That's very exciting. Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. All right, let me share a little bit about the little bit that I know about you.
Yeah.
I do know, and I want to share with everyone, that the reason why I've invited Alex to come on the show is because he made a film with a smartphone. Not a big surprise for you guys, but it's what is it? It's like 20 minutes?
Yeah, 22 even, yeah.
2022. All right.
Yeah.
So it's a 22-minute film. The film is awesome. And the reason I'm saying that, because that's very general, is because he did something that, if you've been listening to this podcast, you already know. I'm big on the story. I'm big on the storytelling. And, you know, it doesn't matter what you're shooting your film with, as long as you got a great story and you're able to turn that into a film. Of course, it doesn't matter. But I like to point those things out because I want you to be inspired by them. So, Alex, why don't you share with everyone first just a little bit about your film, and then I want you to share a little bit about yourself and how you got into filmmaking in the first place.
Sure, yeah. So the film specifically was, it started as just an idea of, it really evolved a lot. It didn't start out as it ended up, as a lot of ideas go. But my thought was just to make something about 5 minutes long. As we said, we clearly did not cut it. But the idea was to shoot something that I knew, because I don't have, to say that I had a skeleton crew would be generous. It was pretty much me and a tripod. Over half of the film was shot on a tripod at just getting creative with angles by myself. So that's start number one. Is there? I knew I needed to do something simple. But as far as the story goes, I thought it would be neat to have something that was obviously around social media. For anyone that's seen the trailer, it definitely involves social media accidentally. My character accidentally stumbles into social media fame. And it's not something that I was wanting. And the reason for it is actually quite a negative reason. In the trailer, this isn't giving any spoilers away, but my character gets a kind of a creepy phone call And at first he thinks it's, just a joke, but then, the person on the phone has like a voice changer, doesn't know who it is, and they describe what he's wearing, and then gets messages that reveal that this person actually does know where he's at and what he's doing. So then it kind of turns a little bit, and it gets a little more serious as it goes on. But then, like I said, he falls into social media fame because he posts his story online. He's just looking for some help. He's a fairly quiet character that keeps to himself, but is kind of desperate. And that's where the story really takes off, is he turns to the online world to see if anybody can help him. And then, of course, no one takes it seriously and says, look for help or call the police. It just starts trending for goofy reasons. And that was kind of the idea behind it, is a little bit of, I wanted to almost like shine a mirror on social media influencers and how like my character changes as the story goes on, and he starts telling people to subscribe, and the classic line at the end of a YouTube video, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. It's just like he just falls into this routine and is definitely influenced by the online fame.
Oh, I have to tell you, one of the things that I really enjoyed when I was watching the film is how it unfolds. The story unfolds and you see the character unfold as well along with it. It's really interesting. Now, your film, when you were saying at the beginning you just wanted to make a 5-minute film,
yeah.
I totally get that. It's kind of like when you're doing screenwriting, right? It's like, I just want to, and then you just sort of go down this rabbit hole within your own imagination creatively. Yeah. Next thing you know, you got like 200 pages. You're like, no, this isn't going to work.
No, yeah. I tend to do that. I often set short goals and go, I can shoot this in a week. And it never goes that way.
Well, the reason why I'm bringing that up is because that's a really good thing. It's that I noticed about your film, which most filmmakers, it takes them a few different films to make before they get to that level of experience where that just kind of starts to happen, unless they've studied a lot. And even still, they have to have that experience. So I want to talk a little bit about that, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So what was your background before you made this film?
So this was, and it's hard to say specifically, this is my third actual short film, I guess is what you say. So I've made what I would call videos in the past, but not anything that was storytelling. I wouldn't consider it, I made videos. I know how to edit a little bit. And that, that was just kind of very casual. But then, so a couple of years ago, how I actually got started into wanting to make my own and take them a little more seriously was I was on Twitter. I got into screenwriting a few years ago and was just writing features and just kind of learning the, creative path. And one day I reached out to Christopher McQuarrie, which is his first big movie was he wrote The Usual Suspects. He was a screenwriter on that back in the early 90s. And then anyway, more recently, he's done a lot of other movies with Tom Cruise, Jack Reacher, Edge of Tomorrow, Mission Impossible, the Top Gun Maverick. So he's done a lot of big films. And anyhow,
I haven't watched any of those. No, I'm just kidding. I've watched them all.
They're big films. And anyhow, a couple years ago, I had tweeted it, and he was kind enough to respond. I just had a quick question, and he said, you can, you see, good luck. He's very nice about it, but he said you can continue writing screenplays and hoping that someone gives you permission to make something, or you can go out there and do it yourself. And we talked back and forth briefly, and obviously don't have the money to make anything big. But I thought, well, I guess I can just do something on my own and do what I can creatively within my limitations of funding. So that's kind of what gave me the confidence to switch direction and not just write, but go out there and make something.
Yeah.
And I do have to say that I really believe that for anyone else out there that is in a similar position, that it really does help your writing to see actors say your lines and to actually see what you envision in your head on a screen and to edit and to assist with that writing, it really does help you a ton, because in my opinion, it helps you see how it will actually happen. You know, because it doesn't always, anyone knows it's written anything, it doesn't always go exactly as you've written it onto the screen. So the more you can practice that and get it closer to what it will end up being, it does save you time. And I think it ends up with the higher quality, outcome.
Because what you see in your head, right, from your perspective of what you want to see on the screen, right, is something different. It's kind of like directing. I've talked to several actors, here, and I was sharing with at least one of them. I had this experience directing, and as a DP and things like that. And sure. One of the things is I've never wanted to be. I took drama classes in high school and things like that, but I never wanted to be in front of a camera. I really don't like that, to be honest. And so one of my colleagues said, "I need you to do me a favor." And he had already done plenty of favors on my case, so I thought I owed him. And he says, "Yeah, I want you to play this small role. You only have a few lines." And I was like, "Oh, man." So I got to see what it's like to be on the other end, and it was a really good experience to see it from that perspective, and I've said, if you're a director, you should always at least once be on the other side and be directed to for a change and see what the actor is going through.
100%. And it's similar to business. If you have a manager who's never been the entry level employee, there's going to be things they miss. There's going to be things they don't get. And it's the same thing in any, film production is if the director has never been directed, there's going to be certain angles that he's not going to understand or she's not going to understand quite as well. So I agree with you 100% on that. It's good to know every different angle and to know, how it all comes together and not just one piece of it.
Oh, most definitely. And in film production, it's a little, you can it's really hard to find someone that can do the lighting, can do this, can do that. You know what I mean? At that level, I when you said business, it reminded me I used to get stuck in sales jobs all the time. And one of the things that people look up to is the sales director or the sales manager is usually they're in that position because they've made a lot of sales. Otherwise, they just don't arrive there. So that's something that's very obvious. But most definitely in directing, it just helps the director. I really totally believe that. It helps the director understand that point of view, because this is a great segue into something else I wanted to ask you. You were directing and you were acting in this film. You are the protagonist. Share. Sure,
yeah. Well, it's hard to know where to start with this. And like I said earlier, to say skeleton crew is very generous. It really was. And this really is not to toot my own horn, as they say, or brag at all. Yes, writer, director, actor, editor. I mean, it was a solo project, as much as it really could be. Outside of my wonderful friends, family, coworkers, everybody that I knew that was, helped me out as far as acting in it. But as far as putting it together and making it happen, it was quite lonely. So direct. The other actor that was in it the most, other than myself, his name's Charlie, and he played my uncle, Marcus, in the movie. And we've worked together on the other films I've done. And working with him is very natural. So as far as your question about directing, we work well together. But yeah, it is. And he kind of knows me. I'll kind of have a look when we're acting. He knows, oh yeah, that's not it. Let's do it again. So it does help when you work with people you're comfortable with. But yes, trying to keep everything straight. And I was the, script coordinator as well. In my head.
The script supervisor?
Supervisor, yes, yeah.
Oh, that's hard to do while you're
It's
doing all
literally
of,
me
yeah.
with the camera on a tripod and having my, my script on an iPad and glancing at it. Wait, did I say that line right? Let me jump back over here and let me see. So it was about as guerrilla filmmaking as it could possibly be. So yeah, that is, and I know everyone listening has gone through some piece of it that way, has a similar experience, where it is tough to piece it all together when you're kind of working by yourself.
And the danger with that is that not only, so I've worked as a script supervisor, and that's a must because you don't want to get to the editing room and going, oh crap, we totally cannot make this scene work with what we didn't get. But yeah, but
and that kind of led me to some reshoots. Some of this was filmed.
Yeah.
So my movie came out 5 days ago, and I was filming my very first shots. I was looking back at footage the other day. My first shots were in early June, and then my most recent shots were literally last week. So it was. I don't have. And I know a lot of people can relate to this, but I don't have much free time. I know a lot of folks don't. I have a family. I have a full-time job. I have things. I'm not able to take a week off and just film. And I know a lot of folks can, relate. And we're all, a lot of people that are making films on their smartphones are kind of in a lot of us are in the same boat. So when you have to film
weekends.
Yeah, well, yeah, and weekends and coordinating with a lot of different things going on. I've literally filmed in between work and a meeting for work, and I've got 45 minutes, and I'm going to film myself. I'm going to set my tripod up. I'm going to get this shot of my car driving by because I need this shot before next Tuesday when I got to get the next. And it's like I got to wake up 30 minutes early to get this one shot of the sun here before I head out and get dressed for work, and it's literally as quick and speedy is the silliest way to make a movie.
I don't want to miss this opportunity to talk about how cool it is that you could do that because you had a smartphone as opposed to another camera, because you're in a situation where, like, you know what, I'm heading back from lunch or whatever. I can I've got a few minutes to shoot this or that. And if you're using another camera, that's not available right there and then, right?
No, absolutely not. No, and yeah, to make it all match, I mean, there's no way I could, if I had an actual crew, it would require lighting setup. It would require an actual cameraman, which does not exist in my world, and sound person as well. So no, if I needed all those things, I could not get a quick shot, and it would not match. But thankfully, since I did everything, and I'm not going to pretend like this was a big production. You're not going to watch this and get it confused with anything you're going to see at a movie theater.
Actually, no. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Hold on a second, because like the living room, the dining room stuff that you were doing with your character, the uncle, right?
Yeah. Right.
I was actually intrigued with the lighting on it, and you said you didn't use any lights.
Zero.
Yeah. So the lighting on that. Now I'm talking about the visuals, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So you really there's no difference between a lot of the films that you watch, indie films shot with prosumer cameras, or maybe a professional camera that someone's not super excellent at, right?
Yeah.
And so the lighting on that was good. Then you have drone footage, which always it's one of so in our the International Mobile Film Festival, to promote that a little bit here. Yes. We do allow 10% drone footage for aerial shots. And the reason for that is because it brings up the production value of your film a lot.
Yes.
And that also works for you. I mean, if I must criticize something, it would be like, so the audio for you was great. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it sounded great. But the audio for your uncle was not so great. But the levels were good throughout. So it's not like the audio was bad. It's just like there was a difference in the quality between your audio and his. But the visuals, I mean, when you guys watch the film, you're going to forget that it was shot with a phone completely. Not only because of the story, but because it visually, it just looks like any other film.
Well, that's nice of you. Yeah, I agree with all of that. I did not use. I laugh because I literally grab my phone. It's what I have in my pocket, and that's literally what I film with. I don't have for I do not encourage. Don't try this at home. I turn for lighting. I turn all the lights on.
Yeah.
I flip all the switches. For sound, it's coming out of the phone, and then I edit a lot. I edit and I do a lot, and I know there's the cliche of we'll fix it in post, but as when you shoot with a smartphone, sometimes you are forced to get really into a rabbit hole of audio correcting after the fact when you don't have proper sound. And you're right. Yeah, I spent a lot of time on the audio, like many weeks on the audio. And if you don't mind, I'll just real quickly say that because of my limitation of time, I did not shoot all of this and then begin the editing process. As soon as I finished shooting something, if it was for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever I had that day, I would go home and edit. And I'd finish and I got scene number 13. That's completely done and edited. And then I'd move on to whatever else. Because I tried to save myself time.
And not only that, but that's actually a smart move. The traditional way of shooting a film where, you've got an entire production crew for a couple of weeks, usually 3 weeks if it's like a feature film, right? When you have that, that's one thing. And then you're stuck with pretty much whatever you have. And then you go into editing and to post, you hand it to somebody else, blah, blah, blah. But if you're going to do it, if you've got a skeleton crew, no matter what camera you have, and you're able to watch everything that same night and start editing it, that's really smart, because then you can go back the next day and say, really quick, we need to redo this one shot. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because I know it can't be fixed.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of times larger productions, they will look at dailies and have a rough idea, but a lot of times they have to. No, it's not post, and they don't have the full picture. And obviously, they're too busy. I mean, they don't have the time. They're obviously filming with an entire crew. They don't have time just to sit down and look at it for a while. And then sometimes they're forced to do reshoots. Where in my case, the whole thing is kind of almost shooting and then reshooting. I just kind of base it on when I get home. I didn't really. I try not to. Obviously, you want to get it the first time, but if there's something I miss, I'm going back. And I know I've got what I got to get the next time.
Let me ask you something. This is going to totally change the subject a little bit.
Sure.
Now that you've shot movies, what were you using before, by the way? What camera?
On other films?
Yeah.
Well, my first one, it's all on the same YouTube.
Fisher Price. No, I'm
channel.
just kidding.
Fisher Price. Well, they got a new model out. No, it was an iPhone 11 Pro was the first thing I made. So it was another smartphone. And then my second film. Do you care if I go a little bit into a quick backstory on the second thing I made?
Please go for it.
The second one and again, it's all the same YouTube channel. So if anybody that looks on there will see. But the second one I made was called Speechless, and it was written as just a standard storytelling, and beginning, middle, and end, regular
like a
movie.
narrative film,
regular, nothing too special. And what happened was, my family and I, we suddenly moved, had a quick decision. We moved states about 10 hours away, and about halfway through filming. So I had this, and it was kind of a quick move. We got an offer on our house, and just, it was not planned out in advance. And so we moved, and then I find myself with all this footage on my laptop, and it's, as and everyone listening knows, you don't shoot a movie at, beginning all the way to the end in order, that you actually watch the movie. So I had random scenes on my laptop. I didn't know so it just sat there for about 6 months, and I was like, gosh, I hate having this on here. I love the movie, but all the actors that were in it were, don't live around here. I can't shoot anything again. So I completely rewrote the whole script and changed it to a mockumentary, a fake documentary, like it's like you're looking back at scenes. So I completely so that's kind of on that one. I started telling this because I had a friend where I lived that we actually did use. He has a Sony DSLR camera. So
Yeah.
some of the bit is shot on that. And then I finished filming where I moved to on my phone. So it's a little bit of both. But
Nice.
that was a complete mess. It was, started as a narrative film and ended up as a fake documentary. And I ended up throwing it together, and I think it worked, but it was quite a process.
I've actually started cooking things that ended up with that same story.
Yeah, that can happen.
Well, shoot, I thought I had sour cream, but
But no.
that's awesome. That's awesome. That's a great story. I'm glad you shared that with us. Because that is the thing too. Don't waste the crumbs, right?
Right. I didn't want to end. I considered only making a trailer out of it. I thought that's just not good enough. So I wanted to have something to show for all that work. So this was the little bit different. I actually got to shoot everything with the same device all the way through on the countdown, which was a little easier.
So what got you started? Now, were you acting before and then got into filmmaking, or was the filmmaking and then acting? How did that work for you?
Yeah, thanks for asking.
So look, I have to say, for someone who was acting in their own film, I didn't realize that when I first watched it until I saw your photo. I'm like, this is the same guy.
The only guy. Yeah.
Because it's like a professional actor.
Oh, that's very nice of you. I don't know that I feel the same way about myself, but that's nice of you to say that.
Well, that happens to all of us.
Right. Well, that's fair. And for anyone wondering, why is this dude in all of his movies so much? It's out of necessity. It's not because I like looking at myself while editing. It's not because I think I'm a great actor. It's none of those things. It's because I don't have anyone else to do it. It's me, and it's easy to film myself with a tripod and not ask someone else to schedule, a friend to be in it. Because no one in any of my movies, unfortunately, are paid. I don't, that's just not where I'm at right now. So everyone that was in it was just literally a friend that was, offered to be in it, and it's great. But yeah, as back to your question, as far as acting, no, I'll make this the short version. So I don't want to bore everyone listening, but my first idea of it, I've been making silly videos since I was 10, but that's different. Not actually taking it seriously or trying to tell a story. I've always loved movies, watching and whatnot. But so I live, and I don't think I mentioned this, but I live in a small town called Cape Girardeau in Missouri. It's kind of
beautiful, by the way. We're going to share a couple of those photos in our article.
Oh yeah, please do. But it's halfway near St. Louis, kind of, for anybody who's not real familiar with the Midwest. But if you Google Cape Girardeau, there's one thing it's known for, and it's not much other than this. But Gone Girl, the film, the 2014 film, David Fincher directed with Ben Affleck, was filmed here. Like 80% of it was filmed in our little tiny town. So it was a big deal. And I was in it. I was an extra. I got to shoot for a few days with scenes with Ben Affleck and to be side by side with David Fincher. So it was a huge deal, and that was in 2013 is when they filmed it. And that was kind of what really being on an actual set and watching as I call real production, a Hollywood production, was one of the coolest experiences, especially somebody that doesn't live near Hollywood or anywhere that I haven't been able to be a part of anything that big. So that was a big, big change for me. And I thought I wanted to be an actor. I thought I wanted to get into it. And I got in touch with a talent agency, and not a lot happened from it. And I thought, well, it sticks with you for a while. And I thought, well, I want to do something. And years later, I get it more into writing. And again, that brings me back to I'm only in my stuff because I need somebody to be in it. And I enjoy it. I enjoy acting with other people, but it's truly out of necessity because I can tell myself what lines to say, and it works for the time being.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's definitely something I preach You know, it's like if you're an actor, don't sit around and wait for somebody to cast you. Cast yourself and make your own films at the same time. You never know what that's going to lead into, you know. And that experience as well. And speaking of the other actors too, so the other actors, so everybody's very naturally acting, which also means that as a director, you did a pretty good job at that as a director and at directing your actors. That takes patience, and it takes knowing how you want that to, you know, that performance to come out. If I want to put it really blunt, you know, what you want to get out of that. And so it takes a good director to pull that from people, especially from people who are either extras or have never, you know, acted before. And that person, you know, those people feeling comfortable to do that with you. There's a part in Alex's film when, you know, because the story, again, is around social media going viral, where people are filming themselves, right? Selfies, doing what you see all the time on social media. And they're so natural. And I was like, you know, it made me question this. So how did that work? How did that happen?
Exactly as it would if it happened in real life. And by that, I mean, I texted, and some of those people don't live 20 hours away, live all over the country. And I just said, hey, do you mind to record yourself saying this? And I gave them a couple options, and they sent me 2 or 3 different recordings, and I threw it in. It was so
cool,
silly as far as how simple it was. I just wrote everybody's lines. Everything was scripted. I said, you don't even have to, you know, I was trying to sell them. You're trying to pitch it. You're like, you know, what do you want? You know, some of these people I hadn't talked to in a few months or whatnot. And I say, hey, do you mind? Can you do me a favor? Like, yeah, sure. What's up? Can you just like take your phone out?
Can you be in my movie?
Yeah. And I'm like trying to hint at, can you just say a couple lines for me real quick? And they're like, what? And yeah, it's from and I try to tell them what the movie's about. And they're like, sure. Okay. And I just say, here, you don't have to make anything up. Just, I'll screenshot you the lines, and you just say, and yeah, I thought it worked out great. And I hate to just talk about my experience only. I'd love to, if I could help anyone else that's thinking about doing this or already, you know, working on their craft a little bit. If I could share something I've really learned that's helped me is when you are working with a skeleton crew, when you are having friends and sometimes unpaid actors in your projects, something that truly helps is when you're writing, you can't always know who's going to play those parts. But if you can write things that match who you're going to cast, and it could be roughly, you know, close, not exactly, but when you can write that's something that's meant for someone that you know is more funny. If you have a friend that's comes across funnier than others, if you have a friend who gets more serious and they have a look that you're going for, you know, try to match that up as best as you can, because then you can kind of trick people into thinking it comes off naturally. When in reality, if you had written it, you know, if they're backwards and I sent the funny line to my friend who was not so great at that, or a serious line to my goofy friend, or, you know, whatnot, you're going to mess yourself up. So, and that may seem obvious, but not everyone is able to get that. And I think it really does help if you try to match it up.
Because then you're portraying in your film real living characters that you and I both know for the most part, you know, that you can connect to. And that's important.
Yeah. And you're not, and I 100% agree. And you're not asking them to act, you know,
right.
the actual act of acting. You're not asking them to do as much when it's something that's closer to their actual personality. So as much as you can with the people that you know and who you can get to be in your project, if you can make it match that, you know, it's going to come off better than if you ask someone to do some extreme, you know, dramatic acting. It's most likely not going to come out as well.
Yeah, there's little quirks and things like that people have. A lot of times, you know, like I told you in drama classes and stuff like that, growing up, I moved around a lot. So everywhere I would go to a new school, the best way to fit in or to jump right in being a dork, you know, and be okay with it was to go to the drama class, you know, and that's where all the dorks were, and I fit right in. But the cool thing about that, though, is that, or I should say the weird thing about that is that when you're thinking about acting, you're always thinking about the lines that you play. But it's not really about you repeating lines in a certain way and showing the emotion. It's about the entire character and their quirky little things that people do. One of my friends is a screenwriter, and I was sitting in the back of the car, and we were going back and forth from a film set, and she says, "What are you doing? What is that sound?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's just there was a zipper on my pants pocket." And I had this habit of going back and forth and open, close the zipper.
Sure.
And she was like, "Oh my God, Susie, I'm just going to write that into one of my characters. I love it." And now that you just said that, it reminded me of that.
That's hilarious. Well, yeah, that's absolutely. Those are the kind of things that grounds any story in reality a bit. Those little silly quirks. Absolutely.
Yeah. So screenwriting, acting, all those things together helped you create this story that not only, look, there's like the supernatural-ish thing going on with it. I don't want to give away.
Sure,
you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But there's one thing that I love is how stories end. Yeah. And look, guys, you got to watch this movie and then you'll know what I'm talking about. It's a very creative ending. It's more creative than when you get to the end, right? You're going to go, that's pretty creative. But that's not all of it. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. My goal is to have people scratch their head as much as possible the last 90 seconds as humanly possible.
I just really think that the story on your film, we wouldn't even be talking right now if the story wasn't as good as I've watched so many films, and it's come to a point to where, you shot it on the phone, but, so have a few thousand other people that I could have on the podcast. But it's not so much just about that. And the cool thing, for everybody that's listening, and thanks for doing that, is that it's inspirational, to get someone like Alex on the show, because that the film, once you watch the film, you're going to know, hey, Alex made this film, and sounds like a normal guy.
And he's a nobody.
I'm sure you can relate to some of the things, that Alex has said. And it's not like, you're sitting there going, yeah, but I don't have that Blackmagic camera. I don't have the Red Cam. I don't have a DSLR. I don't have that same camera. You don't even have to have an iPhone, and here you are going, hey, I've also got a smartphone. If Alex can do it, maybe I can do it. Well, cut out the maybe and just do it, because you got to get started. And like Alex said, he made a few films before this, and he included his phone with it, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, that's great advice. And if I could comment on that.
Oh, I was just going to say, you need to add to this. Don't leave it all on me.
Oh, yeah. No, what I would love to add is that everyone's approach to because this is clearly, this is my passion. This is my hobby, my project, what I love to do. This, unfortunately, right now is not this isn't paying the bills, but it's what I really love to do. And my point is, in my opinion, my approach to storytelling in general is story is king. And I understand that, you watch a Transformers movie, you watch a Marvel movie, as great as, and I like those myself too, but I'm just throwing those examples as those are very eye candy, I guess is how, you put it. But if the story is not there, as many films have found out by their loss, or, not doing well box office wise, if the story's not there, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how cool a scene looks. And I'm not trying to hate on any particular films. I'm not going to name any, but we all know films that look cool, but there's no content there. There's no depth. And what the point I'm trying to make is that if the story isn't there, it doesn't really matter the other quality. I mean, it may, impress people with certain things. Oh yeah, it looked great. But what I look for myself, that's what I'm trying to make. I'm trying to make stories that I want to see. And I know that there's other people out there that, there's going to be some people that feel the same way and are interested in something similar. So for me, I would rather see a story that intrigues me and that actually tells a beginning, middle, and end. And if it's a less quality, I'll take it over something that was, you can only shoot cool shots of the sun 50 different ways. And if nothing happens, I'm out, and that's just me. And again, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. Everyone has their own way of doing it. And I love seeing some of those films. But for me, that's why I've struggled so much with making a short film. I mean, my short films are the length of a TV episode. So I struggle to even call it short, but that's the reason why is I really want to tell a story. It's not just, I want to get a cool shot of something. Is I want a proper storytelling, for when people watch it, I want them to be able to tell their friends, oh, this happened, then this happened. And that's what happened at the ending. I don't want somebody to say, well, I don't really know what happened. It kind of looked cool, but that's the whole goal that's my perspective.
And the other thing is too, Alex, is you want people to feel things while they're watching it. And that's the entertainment value of any story, is that they're feeling things, that you're going through the emotions, even or the wow. You can feel things. Every story is a little different. There are some stories that are so profound that they're just rolling around your head afterwards, and you're not sure because it's connecting with you somehow personally, and you're not sure until you work that out after watching it a few times.
Yeah.
And stories with a message. But there's also, all of them have to have some sort of entertainment value to it. And that is what keeps people engaged as well.
Absolutely. And and who am I to say, I'm not, trying to preach to anybody how to do what they want to do with film. That's just my approach. That's what I'm interested in personally. And I may never make a dime doing this, but it's what I enjoy. And it's the best way for me to do it, is how I'll put it. Again, everyone, I love watching other short films. I'm a big fan. If anybody, wants to share any short films, I love, seeing what other people are working on their projects. And I love to support fellow, creatives. Like I said, for me, this is the only way that I know how to do it. It's what I love to do.
Yeah, and again, I want to discuss a little bit about mobile filmmaking with you. What are your thoughts about what's happening in this industry, in this niche?
Yeah, well, I think it's, we were talking earlier that when smartphones first came around, as far as the version of smartphones we know today, like when iPhone came out in 2007, nobody would even give a thought to it producing a high quality image. The first ones didn't even have video capabilities. And then, a few years passed and okay, yeah, that's getting 2 megapixel, 4 megapixel, it's moving up. But now it's really hard to argue when you see some of the footage that you can get. The biggest thing, and I always go back to this, the smartphones, is you have to have good lighting. The sensors are clearly much smaller than an actual full-size camera because of the size. And I am not speaking from experience. You can see in my movie the lighting, and I took that into account, and I don't take anything back. But if you are going to make something and you want the video to be high quality, the biggest thing with smartphones is lighting. You can get external mics. You can, kind of fix everything else, but you've got to have good lighting. If you're shooting outside and it's sunny out, you're going to be just fine. Indoors is a different story. If you want it to be the same quality, that's the biggest, I think, limitation right now, is until the sensors get larger. But I think, and Sean Baker, I don't know if you're familiar, I'm sure Tangerine, I forget exactly what year it came out, but when he did that, I think that turned a lot of people's heads and started the whole idea of, oh, you can actually make something legit with a phone.
And that was a while ago. People really did not believe it until they saw a feature film, an entire feature film shot with an iPhone that went to Sundance and blew everybody away.
Incredible. Yeah. Yeah. And ever, since then, there's been some other experiences with some higher end films being made on smartphones. Not a ton, but it does happen. And, I think, and most of my stuff is filmed in Filmic Pro is the app that I use. There's a couple scenes that I did with only a couple shots. There was something specific I was looking for, and I did the cinematic mode on iPhone. But you can really get everything in, Filmic Pro or whatever. And again, mine's iPhone. If people have Android users and do other apps, that's, as long as you're using something, you're probably not going to get the same quality out of just the standard photo app. I would highly recommend using something else that can control the lens a little bit more. But yeah, absolutely. I just think lighting is the only thing that you really, if you want to produce something higher quality, not me, but some, other people, that lighting is the biggest thing with phones. Everything else you can really take care of.
There's that also depends on the texture that you want, on the aesthetics of your film. The first film that I got at the film festival in 2011 is called The Fixer by Conrad Mess. If you go to mobilefilmstories.com, you'll see Conrad Mess, his films there. And that film, The Fixer, was shot with an iPhone 4. It was before Filmic Pro and anything else came out. He didn't use the microphone on the phone. It was really, really bad. But he used external sound, meaning, like from, like he actually purchased the voiceover, purchased an actor online to read out the dialogue, because the guy was thinking. The dialogue was really going on inside this guy's head.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And when you watch that film, I mean, it's got a little bit of Tarantino type of, the thing that he did, he shot it when the iPhone 4 came out. He grabbed his wife's phone, said, "Give me your iPhone 4." He had been shooting kind of Matrix-style films, kind of like The Matrix, with guys in suits fighting and, all this stuff, with a camcorder. This is a guy that grew up in Spain wanting to be a director and dreaming about making films. And so he decided, because the iPhone 4 had the first HD capability, he thought he would use it. You're not going to believe the quality of that film, which still holds up today. We're now on the iPhone 13. 14, sorry. Mine's 13, okay?
Same here.
Right? And what he did was, and this is why creativity rules, maybe the apps, maybe you can't get the apps. Maybe, you're going, damn it, I can't use this app or that app or whatever, for whatever reason. Look, don't just stop there. Don't get down on it, because this is what this guy did. He brought it into Adobe After Effects. He did the rack focus there. He did all the colorizing, all the color grading for his film in Adobe. He did all the special effects with it, sound effects, and he brought that film to be what you expect to see in a theater, which is my definition of what cinematic means. Sure, it's something that you look at, you watch any film, and you say, this is the kind of film that looks like something I'd go to the theater and watch, for all its own little reasons and big reasons. That's what that means. And so I, watch Alex's films and then go watch this one. He's been sort of, a lot of the newer filmmakers don't know who Conrad Mess is. I bring him up now, everybody say, who? And I'm like, I'm so sorry that you don't know. The legendary, he's won more iPhone Film Awards in that time than anybody else. Wow. But yeah, it's what I'm saying. It's like, as much as we can complain about, well, the cameras aren't there, the small sensors and things like that, go watch what he was doing. He also did one all CGI with an iPhone 5, I believe, as well.
What? Interesting. I'd love to check that out. Yeah.
Filmmaking, for the most part, if you really want to do something, you only need first the story, the passion, and you need the tenacity to just get out and just start doing it, making it happen. Don't just settle down. Don't get down on yourself and say, I don't have this. I can't do it like this. Don't ever say that.
I 100% agree that everything I've done, and not that it's all that much, but every project I've done, there's always been a moment, multiple moments where I go, should I just quit? It'd be so much easier to just pack up and let's just go home, and I don't know how many other people out there feel that way. I know at least some do, but yeah, just don't listen to that voice.
Well, and especially in your case, it would have been easier to quit because you don't have, you spent less than $1 on your budget, right?
Yes.
You didn't owe anybody anything.
No, it was all stuff I had.
And you didn't have any committed, crew or actors that are saying, what? After I did all this?
Right. Yeah. There's no accountability. There's no, I could have easily quit and just never sent the film out, and all those people that recorded themselves on their phone and just would have forgotten about it.
And for that same reason, on the flip side of that, it's like, well, you had to do it all yourself, which is all the more reason to quit too. So yeah, I really, I applaud you for doing that. And it's one of the reasons, like I said, that I wanted to share you with our listeners because, I think we're at a time now where people are it's like an influx in a way. It's like, well, if it's going to cost me this much to make a film with my phone, why wouldn't I want to just spend the money to make it the traditional way? And it's like, well, you don't have to make it this way that costs this much on a phone. You can still use a phone and not spend that much. And I just want people to get out of that mess.
Yeah, you definitely don't. You don't have to have a high budget to make a high quality film. You don't, and you do have to get creative. I do think. I mean, you can absolutely. It sounds kind of cliche, I suppose, but I've heard quite a few people ask this question: is would you rather see Spielberg or insert whatever high profile name make a movie with a smartphone or watch some random amateur filmmaker make something with like you said, like a high quality black magic or something that's high quality, high budget,
$25,000 camera,
right? But have no experience and have no or not no, but a lot less creativity and talent than someone like that. And clearly the answer is, I'm sure if Spielberg ever decided to, or anyone else, or my favorite is Christopher Nolan. If he had a phone and decided to make a movie, you better believe I would buy a ticket and see it every time. And I don't care, what it was shot on. So I
think he's done something. I just can't point to it right now, so I don't want to be like the dork and have all my listeners going, no, Susie.
Fact checking you.
Right? But I know for a fact that Steven Spielberg did shoot a music video recently. And it was all in one shot. And he didn't use anything but his iPhone, and he had somebody push him on an office chair to do the.
That sounds really familiar.
Yeah.
I feel like you must be right.
Yeah, and I'm sure many of them. Well, this is what I say, right? Because a lot of independent filmmakers, have said to me in the past, Susie, why would I want to film something with my phone when I've got, my $6,000 camera? And I'm like, I totally get that, but you also have a phone. And when you shoot something with that $6,000 camera that you have to pay insurance for, you have to all this stuff, it's not yours anymore. It's not, you're committed to, other people who are going to fund that. But you still have a phone and you have stories that you can share that are totally 100% yours. And one of the things that happened during the pandemic was exactly that we started to see a lot more indie filmmakers, right?
Absolutely.
Using smartphones. So, and when you're talking about creativity, guys, don't forget Jennifer Zhang, who who made a feature film that went to Cannes. Her film was called Sharon, and that film, she shot it by herself with her iPhone, and then she turned around and edited. She's the only one that's done this. Alex, I'm not kidding you. She edited a 73-minute film on the iPhone with an app that wasn't even for film editing. It was like for social media.
And what was the reason for doing this?
Because she just wanted to get it done.
Oh,
and
okay.
she was stuck because of the pandemic. She lived in LA. We had the shutdowns and all these things.
Sure.
And she had this story, and she was like, well, I'll just start shooting it on my phone. And she was the protagonist, and she had to do stunts and all kinds of stuff. You should watch that one too. It's not on Mobile Film Stories though. But it's about being creative. If you really want to do something, there's no stopping you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. Is the only thing, and I hate to put it this way, the only thing I would say that I feel like I've, gotten a little bit of a talent for, or that I've got a better understanding of now, is story. And if the quality of the filming, and I have to say, I did have a friend help with a few scenes that I needed someone else to actually move the camera. And Chris, was my closest friends, was there. A lot of shots were on tripod. He was really the only bit of crew that I had on some of the shots. But my point is, I have confidence that I can intrigue someone, that I can get someone to go, oh, I'm curious what happens next. That's the only, and again, not trying to toot my own horn here. I am not the best actor. I am not the best cinematographer. I'm not, any of that stuff, even with phones or anything else. That's not at all how I feel. I just love it. And I do feel like I have stories to tell that will interest people if they give it a shot. If they give it a chance, they see a short film on YouTube and they think, I don't want to watch. If you give it a shot, I do think a lot of people would enjoy it. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Is I just love the storytelling factor. It's not so much that I love trying to get the perfect, sunset shot. It's, to me, B-roll is great. And I got some of the drone shots that were in there that a lot of people have just commented on this. Like, what'd you think of the film? What do you think of the ending? Oh, the drone shots were great. Sometimes that's the only comment I get back. I'm like, well, that's cool. But yeah, that's not at all why I do it. I think those, aesthetics are fantastic, but it's, for me, again, this is just me, but it's all about story. That's what gets me up.
Hey, you just got complimented on the comments though, because you know what? It's like when people watch Lord of the Rings. People watch Lord of the Rings and they're not talking about, a lot of times, what do you think the comments were on that? Oh, I love the scenery. And, when people talk about cinematography, they're just talking about like the mountains and the fields.
Well, yeah, you've got a point there.
Yeah, because see, this is another thing, just to wrap this up. When you make something, don't keep it to yourself, show it to people. And I mean, if you're proud of it in any way, shape, or form, two things can happen. They'll hate it and you go, well, it looked good to me, but nobody else likes it. Or the other thing that can happen is that people see it in a different way than you do. Most likely that's always going to happen no matter which way that happens. And when they see it differently, then you get their perspective. And kind of like, Peter Jackson. Oh, people love Lord of the Rings because of the scenic shots.
Yeah.
It's like, even though that is it, they had to get to that scenic shot because they were following the story along.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And I do think that any filmmaker at any level, whether you're a nobody like myself or you're somebody like Peter Jackson or anywhere in the middle, I do think, because I'm a pretty objective person. I try not to get emotional. I can, like I said, I'm happily willing to admit I'm not the best actor or cinematographer, any of those things. But I do think it's important to remember that film in general, like any creative art, is very, very subjective. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
very important for people don't get too down on yourself if you didn't get the shot just right, if you didn't say the dialogue just how you wanted to. I think it's important to remember that some people will appreciate it more than you realize, and others may not. And the people that don't, you got to remember that if you look on IMDb, even The Godfather or even The Dark Knight or whatever, insert any high ranking movie still gets negative reviews. A lot of people hated The Shawshank Redemption when it came out. Don't forget that even some of the best movies ever made still get some negative reviews. So of course, whatever you make will have people out there that feel that way, but don't let that stop you.
Yeah, it's also the timing. There are movies right now that are a big hit that people are going, oh my God, I never even watched this film before because I heard people say so many bad things about it. And those same people are watching it today because of the things that are connecting with them today. And they're seeing it completely different and they're loving those same films. So sometimes somebody goes on there, they watch your film, maybe they've had a bad day, they got fired or something. They go to escape and they watch a film and they're going to take it out on you,
Yes.
So don't take that too hot, and remember that you're learning every single time. Any famous director will tell you that their last film that grossed a gazillion dollars at the home box office and all that stuff, to them, it doesn't mean that. There were things in it that they didn't like, they didn't get to do. Film is an art and a science. It's both those things together. Yes, it's subjective, but it's also, you have to be objective to it because there's some certain rules that you kind of have to follow in the storytelling, of course. But it is very subjective at the same time. That's what the challenge is and why it's so attractive if you like a challenge. And if you're creative, that's part of creativity is the challenge. That's what motivates you, right?
Yes. That's 100% partly why I took this movie on. And I won't go down the long story on this, but real quick, I did take it as a challenge to make a movie that I wanted to make, obviously my best. That's the goal, with every next project, try to get better than the last. And I didn't even search to try to rent a high end camera. I wanted to make this on a smartphone. And I took it as a challenge to try to make the highest quality thing that I could make with not spending a dime. Like that was kind of my internal goal was not to spend any money, only make do with what I already owned. And this is, what I came out with. Well,
and now you're in the podcast. And next is, I don't know, Saturday Night Live or something. I don't know. This definitely has nothing to do with what I was trying to get out, but you know what I mean. CNN or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Hey, Alex, what is your handle for Twitter?
Twitter is A Reid the Writer. My last name is Reid, so it's AREID the Writer.
Okay, cool. And then on YouTube?
It's the same handle. I know YouTube recently added it to where you can have a handle now. And it's the same thing, A Reid the Writer. And it's the channel is just called Alex Reid. That's the title, but the handle is A Reid the Writer.
Awesome. Well, guys, I'm going to put the link in the show notes so you can watch it right off the bat. So as soon as you hear that little song, you know which song I'm talking about, right? So, hey, Alex, I appreciate you being on the show. And everybody get in touch with Alex. He just told you he'll watch your films. He'll watch them all more than I will. I'm so busy with the film festival right now. I get a lot of people going, watch my film. And I'm like, all right, I love you all. I'm going to do everything I can. I get no sleep.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. But Alex will watch him too. And you've got an awesome storytelling guru here who will watch your films. But more than anything, ask him questions. And who knows, maybe you guys can collaborate on a project together as well.
And I am not at all thinking highly of myself. But if there's anything I can do to help fellow, short film creatives out there, I love to help. So whatever I can do. I thank you so much for having me on the show.
Hey, let me ask you to do one more little thing, something we always do. Like in your film, right? In your film, you have this little thing that you do What is that thing that you do when you're ending on the YouTube?
Jack 2.0 out.
All right. So say goodbye to our listeners.
All right. Jack 2.0 out.